Okay. So I just want to welcome everybody for joining us for the Arthur Chat with one of my favorite people ever, Kevin O'Brien. Tonight I'll start out for those of you who haven't joined us for an Arthur Chat before. I'll start it up for the first half hour, and then you guys start thinking about questions that you have for Kevin, questions, comments, and just send them to me via the IM. There should be a little chat button towards the middle center of your screen, and I'll submit those to Kevin. I'll ask Kevin. I'll ask Kevin the questions. So welcome, Kevin O'Brien, best-selling author
Thank you,
extraordinaire.
Deborah. Oh, yeah, I'm getting a kickback there.
Yes.
Okay, I was getting some feedback, but I think I'm okay.
You're doing better. Well, you have come a long way, baby, since last year. Last year, when I came up with the idea of doing the author chats, you're one of the very first people I asked, and you said, "I don't know, I'm not really set up for Zoom." You remember?
Of course.
Now
God,
you're a Zoom expert.
getting with it. I've got, I'm set up here with my camera and my flattering camera. It's like with the Vaseline on the lens to keep the wrinkles from showing. And in my office, you may get what looks like runway lights because I've got a little window in front of me. The shades are drawn, but there's little holes. I don't know if you can see them. Good, you can't.
No,
But
you're doing fine.
okay,
Because it's 4:35 over there.
Yes, it is 4:35. So we are ready to rock and roll and dish some dirt here.
Let's
ready
dish
to
some
talk.
dirt.
Okay.
What have you been up to? Because it's really funny. You guys, those came up in my memories, Facebook memories.
Mm-hmm.
1 year ago today, Kevin visited us last year.
Oh my God, really? To the date?
August 3rd, 2020.
That's bizarre. Oh,
how
wow.
Weird is that?
That is weird. I love it. It's kismet.
It was sheer coincidence, I promise you. But I was just
doing this. We could have just rehashed last year's discussion, couldn't we have?
Well, you are you tied with Andrew Grant, aka Andrew Child. Hold on, one more person. Who's now taking over the Jack Reacher series. For people who visited us the most last year.
Wow. That's a compliment. I love that.
Isn't that great? We have the best.
Now, is Andrew Grant, is he Lee Child's son?
He's his brother.
He's his brother.
His younger brother. Yeah.
I love it.
Lee is retiring. And so they're doing co-writing, and then he's going to be signing off and just letting Andrew take over the franchise.
Oh, wow. See, you are so in on all these little things that are happening. Now, have you met Lee Child? I met him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Of course you have. You've met all the biggies. I thought he was really nice. I thought he was just an incredibly nice guy. I don't know how.
He is.
Of course, like you're recording this, like you're gonna say, like, yeah, oh no, he's disgusting. He tried to pinch me. He's a jerk.
Now, let me tell you about Lee Child. Lee Child is the
talk about it.
He is so cool.
He is.
I mean, and he stays cool. And I mean, here he is retiring and everything, and he's still the coolest.
Yeah. Well, he's so nice too. He is. I met him at a library function for King County Library in Seattle, and we were the only ones there. We were early, so we sat and talked for about 20 minutes. And he said, I'm going to count how many times people tell me today, because they had just cast Tom Cruise as Jack Reacher. He said, I'm going to count to myself how many people are going to say that Tom Cruise isn't right for Jack Reacher. He's too short, or he's too this, he's too that. And, at the end of the night, I came to him. He's like, oh, I lost track after about 15 people that told me. So, but he was so nice. He was the keynote speaker there. And he was just down to earth and very accessible and very not full of himself. And yeah. Cool
and
guy.
So if you loved Lee, you would just really adore Andrew. Andrew's like the nicest guy in the world. He's so cool. And his wife is simply gorgeous. She's absolutely stunning. And she's a writer too, Tasha Alexander.
Cool. Oh, yes.
So,
yes. I know her. I don't know her personally, but I know that name. I know.
Yeah. And so the two of them together are just awesome. We love them both. You know, cool. They're so cool.
Oh.
So we've had Tasha already on this year, and I'm hoping that we can get Lee and Andrew on later on with the new release of the new Jack Reacher book. That would be great.
You have some heavy hitters. I missed your Meg Tilly.
Oh, you don't have to miss it. Meg Tilly is coming on.
She's coming on again?
Later on this month. Yeah.
I love it. Now, and you know about our connection, that she starred in Agnes of God, and the guy, John Piehlmeyer, who wrote Agnes of God, wrote the screenplay to Only Son, the book that I wrote that did not get turned into a movie, but he wrote the screenplay, and so he wrote an unpublished screenplay. So that's my one connection. That, and of course you, Deborah, you are, yeah. So we're, the 6 degrees of separation between us is narrowing by the minute. So I will definitely be checking in if I'm not busy that day.
Yeah, definitely check in, because we adore Meg. That she was on, let's see, once last year, I think, but she was on earlier this year because she has a new book coming out, the Runaway Heiress.
Oh, cool.
Also released on the 27th, which was my birthday, and which was really nice of y'all to do that. Really nice.
I know, it's, well, we planned it ahead of time.
Anyway, I asked her, I said, okay, do you want to come before the release or after the release, or you want to come both? We'll have you as many times as you want. And so she says, I'll come both. So she came earlier this year, and she's going to, just so you guys know, Meg Tilly, the actress and author, she's going to be on Tuesday, August the 24th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is 4:30 your time. Meg will be talking about her book, and arm twisting, she'll tell us at least one fun Hollywood story. And she's got some great ones. And if you've never had a chance to see Meg Tilly just as a person, she is the most delightful person. She's kind of like you know, you meet her and you fall in love, you know.
Oh, I love
just that sweet. So yeah, that's why you two are two of my favorite people in the world.
Well, we started to talk about Erica Baumeister too before we officially started.
Yes.
And Erica is such a sweetheart. And I have, my Erica story is that we were recently, not that recently, it was about 2 years ago, it was pre-COVID. We were both at an event, Halloween reading. We both wrote scary short stories for a art center on Bainbridge Island. And we were both there to read. And during a break, we were in the back room and we were comparing notes. And she said, well, my new book is not doing all that well. The Scent Keeper was not doing all that well. And I said, well, join the club. The Betrayed Wife is not doing very well. And I said, and we were sort of comparing notes, and and she was like, about how our sales had been going down and everything else. And about 3 months later, Reese Witherspoon picked The Scent Keeper as her book club pick, and Erica's career, which really never was hurting at all because she's such a wonderful writer, but it really took off then. And God bless, it couldn't happen to a nicer person. She is so fun, and you've had her on the show, I think, and
yeah, I want her to come back. I can't wait till her next one comes out. Erica Baumeister, The Scent Keeper, SCENT,
right?
Smelling, and it's one of those books that you pick up and you say, read the first chapter and you're hooked, and it does not let you go, in my opinion. And people may disagree with me, but I thought it bore similarities to Where the Crawdads Sing, but to me, I liked it better than Where the Crawdads Sing.
Wow.
So, and that is the honest to goodness truth.
Well, I liked, okay. I love that we're just chatting like this. I loved Crawdads. I thought it was really good, but the writer did something that kind of drives me crazy, and that is head hopped. She went from one person's head to another in the same scene. So you have to sort of switch alliances while you're reading it. So you're not sure whose head you're in and whose point of view you're getting. And she did that a few times, and it flagged me, and I was like, okay. But otherwise, God, I can't complain at all. I was hooked. I went on BookBub and gave it 5 stars because it was terrific. So here I am slamming it, but I thought it was wonderful.
Yeah, I thought it was good. But it just was. I like.
You like Ericta's better. Yeah,
I did.
Yeah.
Kevin.
Yes.
We got to talk.
Okay. Lay some questions on me. Yeah, we were just chatting away, gossiping.
Kevin and I, like I said, he's one of those people that you meet and it's just like love at first sight for me. And for me, it was. I just instantly we connected and we just got along. I met you in 2012 in Chicago. And we just connect, and we've stayed friends all these years.
And connected,
and of course now with technology, which is really nice to be able to see you because you live on the other side of the country, and I've only been begging him to come to our side for years, but he's always ready.
I will when this epidemic.
You will someday. You have to. We're going to kidnap you at some point. So the night she disappeared. This is his latest. Hopefully, doesn't. Such a good book.
Oh, thank you.
You did such a great job. I'm so proud of you. It's funny. I was saying to Kevin a few minutes ago. I love all of your books. This one, I don't know. Maybe it's because it's the one I've read the most recently. I just gosh, this is a good book. You know what I love the most about it?
What?
You got me.
I fooled you?
I didn't have it figured out.
Ah.
Now, those of you in my book group, you know that I tend to figure it all out. And there were some things I figured out about this one. I did some. But it was very twisty. It twisted just when I thought it was going to zig, it zagged, and it was it was really surprising. But I'm going to tell you something. Those of you who because some people have read it, so we're not going to do spoilers. Some people are reading it. Some people haven't read it, and they're getting it, who've already ordered it, and they just when I was reading, I thought, is this going to be like Gone Girl? And
which I mentioned several times.
You were so cool. Yeah. You were so smart to put in there, just the obvious. And when I read it, I started laughing because when the character says, this sounds a lot like Gone Girl.
I thought, you know what? They're going to start comparing and saying, oh, this is just another Gone Girl. So I thought, you know what? Put that in there and make sure that you are paying tribute to Gillian Flynn, because there certainly are similarities in the storyline, and I didn't want it to be too similar, but I wanted people to sort of wonder if this is what she was pulling, if Courtney was.
I thought that was very clever.
Oh, thank you. Well, I was proud of the way I sort of introduced it, because it was like, do you think she ripped off Gone Girl? And it was like, well, she's ripped off other people's book ideas, so she could have ripped off Gone Girl. Yeah, I had a lot of fun writing the Courtney character because she's so image conscious, and she's so the package that you're seeing is not what you're getting at all, and you automatically sort of feel for her because she's deaf, and so you automatically give her a lot of sympathy and trust and everything else, and she's just a manipulator. I love that I came up with this, that she has a publicist who's telling her what to do, like, oh yeah, you really should try and be a power couple with your husband, and come off as this great, cool Seattle power couple. And then she buys a floating home because that's what people might expect a couple of really cool Seattle people to be living in, a floating home. It's part of the Seattle image, thanks to Sleepless in Seattle. And so I like that she's got all this orchestrated, and she's not who she appears.
Actually, all of your characters are not what they appear. All of them.
Yeah. Thank you.
It was very clever. But first, before, there may be some people on the call who aren't familiar with the book yet. So let's pause and let's tell them what the synopsis of the book. Now, do you want to do it, or do you want me to do it?
Oh, if you'd like to do it, I can sit and listen.
Okay.
Whatever works for you.
All right. So the night she disappeared. Hold on, we lost somebody. We're putting somebody back on. Okay. Just coming on. Okay, so the night she disappeared, now available. The story is it starts with a reporter, a TV reporter, and she is has a monster of a hangover, and she can't remember what's happened. And then she finds out that the only thing she remembered was she was having dinner with her lover and his wife, the unsuspecting wife. And the unsuspecting wife goes missing. She just disappeared. So did the reporter, Anna Malone, do it? Or did she not? She can't remember. So that's the story. Dun, dun, dun. Did I do okay, Kevin?
I think you did it justice. Yeah. I think when I started writing it, my editor wanted an unreliable narrator. And when you do that, you either have to have somebody who's an alcoholic, like in Paula Hawkins' Girl on the Train, and can't remember things, or they're just basically lying to you the whole time, which I think they pulled that off sort of well in The Silent Patient, but I felt it kind of a ripoff at the same time. I didn't want the reader to be frustrated with me or the main character. So I did have her get very inebriated that night that she has dinner. She's supposed to get together with Courtney, who is her lover's wife. And she got suckered into doing a news story on Courtney, who is a prominent YA, young adult, author. And she's got a series that's sort of coming out that's sort of like Twilight. It's set in Seattle. It's about these handy-capable teenage superheroes. And she is starting to emerge, and she manipulates Anna into doing a news story on her, even though Anna's like, oh my God, I am sleeping with her husband, and she doesn't know it. And so she's so uncomfortable, and she's supposed to have dinner with just Courtney, and who shows up to the dinner but Courtney's spouse, who Anna has been sleeping with. And Anna, of course, starts, okay, because she's so uncomfortable, she starts drinking too much, which is totally unlike her. And so, yeah, I really enjoyed putting her in that situation. And I think it's almost like her comeuppance in many ways, but at the same time, I want people to sort of sympathize with her.
Right. Well, it was really interesting because, like I said, you've got people who are reliable and you've got people who are unreliable. Is Anna Malone likable? That's something that I really wrestled with, because at times I didn't know if I liked her, and that made her the story even more compelling.
Thank you. Yeah, I didn't want it to be a straight, like, God, I can't stand her, or, yes, she's likable. At times, she even points out herself that she rationalizes a lot to tell herself that she's a good person. And yet she's doing some pretty reprehensible things. She's sleeping with a married man, and she's trying to make excuses for herself. And there are some excuses that are legitimate. She fell in love with him before she knew he was married. And, and as like you say, there's everybody on the surface is not quite who they appear. He seems like he's a great guy, but he's very weak. He doesn't, he didn't tell her that he was married. He gets involved. He won't leave his wife, even though the love is gone from their relationship. So I like that there are so many layers to the people and characters in this. I had a fun time writing them.
Yeah, it was very ziggy and zaggy, as far as like, you just when I thought I got this figured out, then you threw me a curve, and I was like, hey, okay, well then it's probably this, and then curve again. So it was very interesting. The way you treated treated the deaf community, I thought was very interesting. Did you do any extra work to make sure that you had all of the data correct?
Yes, it was, I did some research. I also talked to somebody who did sign language, who wasn't hearing impaired, but she did sign language for deaf people, and did, she did the signing for different events. And so she told me a lot about like Kohler implants, and also just about, one of the things I wanted to get right was just that deaf people will sign even if they are talking to hearing people who can hear. They'll still sign even though they to be more articulate. And it was interesting to find out about Kohler implants. I was really happy to see the movie The Sound of Metal, which was nominated for Best Picture last year, about a rock star who goes deaf, to find out not only about the hearing impaired community, but also about Kohler implants. And when the book was already in the bag by the time I watched it, so I was like, oh God, I hope I got everything right. And having gotten through the movie, I was like, oh good, I think I did everything right. I think I got all the details right. The one character has a chip solar implant that I think is still being they're ironing the kinks out of it. But that's, so I sort of took liberties there, but most of it's pretty accurate, I hope. So.
Yeah, I thought you portrayed them in a very positive light, and I personally, I love it when I read books that are inclusive, where you've got characters that are handicapable.
Yeah,
I like that, and so I really appreciated that about this book.
Thank you. I tried to make him three-dimensional. I didn't, obviously Courtney, I've already talked about her. She's not exactly the most likable character, and the other hearing impaired character has some flaws too. So I was a little worried. I haven't heard from anybody yet that they say, what do you have against deaf people? Because the two hearing impaired people are not exactly trustworthy or or perfect. But I hopefully they'll get it, that that they're three-dimensional characters, and it's not a broad representation of deaf people.
When I tell people about your books, which I do a lot.
God bless you.
I do. Listen, I adore Kevin. People always will ask me, is it gross? Is it gory? When I say
yes.
Thriller. And I said, Kevin, I say thriller, but Kevin is really more of a suspense writer. And he's very heavily influenced by Hitchcock. So it's more of that suspense, which actually in a way is scarier than when you have all the blood and gore and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I said, Kevin doesn't need to rely on the gimmicks of blood and gore to create that world and that, the nail biting experience where you're just a little bit nervous.
Oh, thank you.
I love that you are able to do all that so masterfully.
Thanks. Well, I'm not a big fan of blood and gore. I read a very popular author who wrote one of her serial killer books, and I was sort of put off by how gory it was. And at one point, my editor did want me to sort of soup up the books to be a little bit more gory, and I was like, I took a stand and just said, I don't really want to do that. I think I'm going to turn off a lot of people. And I find that when I'm meeting readers and talking up my books, that one of the first things people say is, I hope it's not gory. I hope it's not, I don't like really gruesome books. And I'll tell them, if they're scary, but they're not gory, and I'll make suggestions. For example, like, I think people think Rear Window, that movie is such a great movie. Oh, it's such a fun movie, and it's really cool and suspenseful and everything else. But it is a story about a man who chops up his wife in the bathtub and takes out her body parts and dumps them in the East River. But people forget that. They think of Grace Kelly and James Stewart and Thelma Ritter, and that it's all very interesting about looking at the neighbors, but the goriness is suggested, and it becomes so much more interesting the way it's suggested. I mean, Hitchcock, with just one shot of Raymond Burr wrapping up a saw or wiping down the bathroom walls, and you know what's happened in there. You don't need this gruesome, gory chainsaw murder kind of thing. You just see that, and it's enough. And then you can sit back and enjoy the suspense. And that's what I kind of want to do. Yeah. Speaking of name dropping, we've been not dropping names. I thanks to Garth, I met Molly Ringwald at a dinner party, and she's a doll. She is such a sweetheart. I fell in love with her the minute I met her. And well, of course, the minute I met her, I said to her, I said, you know, I have nieces and nephews who are just going to flip when they find out that I'm sitting here on a sofa next to Molly Ringwald. And she said, you know, you don't look old enough to have nieces and nephews that grew up in the 80s. I was like, why couldn't anyone love you? Everybody has to love you. You're the nicest person. But I was telling her what I wrote, and she said, well, I hope it's not gory. And she said, I do like Hitchcock, but I don't like a lot of gory stuff. And I said, well, I said, that's the type of stuff I write. It's mostly Hitchcock, not very gory. More gore is suggested. There's an occasional sort of, you know, wince and shudder moment, but not really. I go for slow suspense.
Yeah, and to clarify, with when you say scary stuff, it's not like horror either. It's just it's pure suspense.
Oh, thank you.
True suspense. And so there's that distinction. So don't be afraid, those of you who haven't read a Kevin book. That's what our book club calls them. We call them a Kevin book.
I love your book club.
I know, our book club loves you. Yeah, don't let that put you off on thinking it's a scary book. They're scary books, because they're not. You know, it's just enough of that suspense where it's like, okay, what's going to happen? That type of thing.
I do say I get a little bit of, like, I feel sort of sadistic at the same time. I kind of like, well, I'll get emails in the middle of the night. I do my writing late at night, and occasionally I'll get the bing, and it's an email, and it'll be from some woman in Nebraska who said, you know, I have just gotten up and checked my front door and made sure the lock is working. And my windows, and I'm scared, and I just thought you should know. And I'm like, there's a part of me that's like, oh, I'm so sorry. And another part of me is like, ha 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 ha, good. You know, good, they're scared. So it's very flattering. I do kind of go for the, oh, I hope they're scared, but in a good way, you know, that it's not that sort of creepy, freak me out type of thing.
Yeah, I like that. And you know, the other thing I like about your books, and this is not giving this away, his other books, I like the way you treat women and kids in your books. Yeah, you're really so respectful of just how you create these female characters, and the way you treat kids in your books. You know, where your kids are smart, the kids in your books are always smart, and a lot of them are brave, and you know, I just love that. It's something I appreciate about your books.
Oh, thank you. Well, you know, I've had most of my heroes in my books are women. I've had a couple that where the major character is a man, but I think, you know, it sounds sexist, but I feel that women are more vulnerable. We will worry more for a woman. We'll worry even more for her if she has children, because she's putting her focus on her kids, and she's worried about them instead of herself. So that was a challenge to The Night She Disappeared, is that I had a character who basically lives alone, and doesn't have to worry about anyone except herself. She does choose to worry about certain people, but so that was a challenge. And I also like to write about like teenage boys. You know, I mean, I have a lot of characters who basically are me. They're teenage boys in my books. Most of them are about 90% me. And I think we all relate to teenagers in our teenage times, when we were so vulnerable and we did such stupid things, and we cared about such stupid things that were so important to us. But it's an interesting time. One of these days I'm going to try. I might try and do a YA. I don't know if I should ever do a young adult novel or not, but I may want to do that one day.
That would be cool. Let's take some questions from the group.
Sure.
Okay, so if you have questions, go ahead and send them. All right. Let's see the first one. Let me scroll back up here. Okay. First of all, I want to read Emily's question. She submitted it earlier. She says, after listening to the audiobook of Kevin's Tell Me You're Sorry, she said she's wondering if authors have control over who narrates the audio versions of their books. She says, Michael Kramer was fine. She said, I would have chosen a female narrator instead, since more of the stories seem to be told from a female point of view.
It's a great question. Tantor Audio has done all my books, and I think they're great. And in more recent in more recent years, they have given me more input on, they'll do a listing, very short, usually it's 2 or 3 names, and say, who would you like to narrate your book? And so I thought Michael Kramer did a great job. I only heard one of the books. I start to listen to him, and then I'm like, oh, this is really good. And then I'm like, well, you wrote it. Of course you're going to think it's good. So I'll stop listening. And so I don't really have a really valid opinion of which narrators were great or not, but I was so pumped that the narrator for The Betrayed Wife was Anne Marie Lee. And she also did the narration for Sharp Objects and for Women in the Window. So I was like, oh my God, I'm with this woman who does just heavy hitter stuff. And I was hoping she was going to do The Night She Disappeared. And instead they gave me Brad Tait, I think it's Tait, I think is how his last name is spelled. But they actually, it was between him and somebody else. And I thought, oh, let's go with Brad. I don't know his work that well, and I wasn't sure about his credentials. And I also wasn't sure about him narrating The Night She Disappeared, because it's almost all from a woman's point of view. It changes from Anna's point of view to Sally Justice's point of view. And then finally, toward the end, you get a bit of Russ, his point of view. But I thought, why are they giving me 2 men narrators as a choice? But what I've heard so far is that he does a terrific job. So you can never tell. But it's a really good point, because I was thinking the exact same thing that Emily was thinking when they selected the narrator for The Night She Disappeared. I was like, well, it should be a woman. But apparently he did a great job, is what I'm hearing. So check it out on audio if you have it.
Emily, you wave. I always like to acknowledge people so you can see them.
Oh, hi, Emily. I can't. I should click on this. I love Jessica's cat in the background. It's just going cray cray. I love it. It looks like a bobblehead.
we end up having a lot of pets joining us.
I love that. I'm gonna scroll through. There's Emily. Hey, Emily. How are you?
This is her first time joining us.
Hey, Rebecca. Hey, Carol.
This is her first time joining us. She is actually Chris. She's coming up as Erin. That's her twin sister.
Oh, hey, how's it going, Chris? And there's Shannon, and I see Diane. Let's see who else is here. There's Deborah. Okay, we're back to Deborah. I see Diane, Wendy, Krista. Cool. Okay, let's go back the other way. And there's Jessica. There's a couple of Jessicas. I love it. And Karen and Mary.
Sadly, we have lost Joanna.
Joanna, and I was going to sing her praises for coming in and kicking some ass at Barnes & Noble that didn't carry
I saw her. She seemed to have been having some problems because she logged in several times, and I admitted her, so I don't know what happened. I know she seemed to have problems with the sound.
Well, be sure to thank her.
But I told her, I said, it's okay. I'm recording this.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so she can hear me thank her.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joanna.
Yeah, so I have to tell you guys a story about Joanna. She might kill me for telling the story, but Joanna said that she gets so angry when she goes into her local Barnes & Noble and she can't find Kevin's books there. So she went in there maybe a month or so ago, and she said, I come here all the time. You guys don't have any of your Kevin books. And so she said, I need to talk to a manager. So I thought that is just the sweetest thing. So Kevin, say what you want to say to Joanna.
I love that she's handing out the whoop ass and the lollipops, and she was fresh out of lollipops. So she just went in and whoop some ass. I love it. So thank you so much, Joanna. It's so great to hear that you're in there pitching for me. Sometimes I worry, you know, I had a neighbor who would have a meltdown at different bookstores and really tell them off. But I can, she was the type of person who I can just see as soon as she left the store, the sellers were like, okay, let's never order a Kevin O'Brien book. Let's not, that she's a jerk. But Joanna, I can see her doing it and them still respecting her and loving her because she's who she is. She's so wonderful. And they'll probably gonna listen and say, okay, we like her. We're gonna get Kevin O'Brien books in here, or Kevin books, as you like to call
Kevin
them.
Books. Joanna's a class act, so I know she wasn't mean about it.
Yeah. Deborah's Books Club is a class act. That's the first prerequisite to join. You have to be classy.
We have the best people, honestly. We've stayed together now for over, let's see, almost a year and a half.
Wow.
Online since the whole COVID situation started. So.
Well, you know, I have to hand it to you. You've made this work. As soon as the COVID situation started happening, you were like, how are we going to do this remotely? How are we going to still handle this? And I think your inventiveness and your intuition just, you know, it just speaks volumes for who you are. I just think that's so cool that you've done this.
Well, thank you, Kevin. You know, I couldn't say goodbye to everybody.
Yeah. Well, on top of that, you ended up getting some really highfalutin, some cool people in there. I feel honored to be part of it.
That's awesome. It's amazing who we've been able to get. I'm still surprised. But that's why we opened it up to the public, because I said, well, we've got all these really big authors who've come to visit us.
Yeah.
I said, why don't we just ask, okay, if anybody else wants to join us, because this is awesome.
Well, I'm going to talk you up.
And I tell them, I said, you know, I've gone to enough book conferences that I know that the lines to see these people is just really long.
Yeah.
And we get these people to ourselves. That's a blessing.
Yeah. Oh, yes, for sure.
All right. So next question. This one's Becky. Becky Wade.
Hey, Becky.
Okay. Becky says that she loved the audiobook. The story kept her going. The brother's storyline, though, frowny face. Without saying too much. Sad face, the brother.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Stuart was sort of a tough character to write. It was sort of, and he's so flawed and he's so sad. It's weird when you have different characters that you're dealing with, and there's so many disappointments in him, and yet at the same time, Anna will not give up on her brother, and I had a fun time writing her tragic backstory. She has gone through a lot of stuff. I think it's a Thelma Ritter line from some movie. Everything but the bloodhounds napping at her rear end. It's like she had all these horrible things happen to her when she's a kid. I don't think it's going to spoil anything. She has a father who was arrested for embezzlement, and or insider trading rather, and he commits suicide in jail. She has a mom who turns alcoholic and has an accident, and she has a brother who she just adored, who runs away from home at age 17 and then later appears in the book, and sort of comes back into her life only to be sort of a big disappointment at times. So he's a very flawed character, but there's something you still sort of, I hope you can sort of like about him at the same time. So
I thought you handled his character in a very respectful way.
Thank you.
I really did. I think you could have gone with you could have gone with the obvious, but you didn't. And I really, really like that. Like I said, I thought the way you handled all the characters, you know, none of them are 100% good, and none of them are 100% bad, really.
Yeah.
So, and that's what gave this book more texture, in my opinion.
Thank you. Yeah? Well, that's what I kind of liked about Sally Justice too. She's, you know, at first glance you think, oh, she's awful, but yet I had such fun writing to her because there's some good in her, but she's also just really, she's kind of a train wreck too. She's just, and just a bulldozer. She comes in and just doesn't care who she hurts and everything else, but at the same time, she's sort of vulnerable herself. So
right.
yeah.
Emily again. This is from
Hey, Emily again.
Emily sent me an email last week, and she goes, I'm listening to a Kevin book. Tell me you're sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, one of the characters in that book is Deborah Neff. Is that a coincidence?
Oh, total coincidence. There's no such thing as on purpose when you're an author, since you can always get sued. So Deborah, you never know, she may just suddenly hate me tomorrow and decide to sue me. So Deborah, that was a total coincidence, especially since we're being recorded right now.
Yeah.
No, I said I'd give her a shout out. I do that with some of my favorite people. So Deborah was one of the first. I think I wrote Tell Me You're Sorry. I think it was 1 or 2 books after we met.
Yes, so, yes, it was. Well, and the way it happened was I was joking with Kevin one day, and I said, well, you can always put me in one of your books, Kevin. And I was just totally joking. I said, just as long as you don't kill me off. And so a few months later, Kevin contacts me and he says, is it okay if I put you in one of my books as a character? And I said, sure. Just don't kill me off, please. I don't think I'd want to read that.
And, well, see, I'm no fool, because I'm like, she's a bookseller. I'm going to put her name in there. She'll sell more of these books. But it wasn't a ploy. I was doing it as a tribute.
And that was really nice. And so Kevin frequently does that with the friends. Like he's named characters after Garth, and he'll and he calls them winks. Yeah. So he does that quite often. And I love that you gave a shout out to that, and about maybe 3 or 4 shout outs to the bookstore over in Seattle.
Yes. Yeah.
That has done book signings, and I thought that was really great. I forgot the name of their store.
It's Elliott Bay Books.
Yes, Elliott Bay Books.
It's one of the big independents. If you go online and see, the top 50 independent bookstores in the United States, you're always going to see Elliott Bay Books in Seattle. So it's up there with like Parnassus Books in Tennessee, and it's being one of the big premier bookstores. It's huge too. It's a lot of fun. They're very nice to me. They support my books and support me.
Yeah, so I was glad. I was really glad that you did that and did a nice shout out to them several times.
Thank you.
That was really nice. Okay, so Chris wants to know more about meeting Molly Ringwald. She wants more.
Who was asking about this?
This is Chris.
Hi, Chris. Yes, hi, Chris again. So, okay. I love telling stories like this. So anyway, I get a call from Garth Stein one night, and he says, we're going over to Mark and Chelsea's house, and I'm supposed to go over there, and it's a small dinner party, and his wife, Drella, had a headache, and she couldn't go. So he said, would you be my wife for the night? And I said, well, of course. He said, well, Molly Ringwald's going to be there. And I was like, what? Okay, just sign me up. Yes. So we did have to drive. It was about 45 minutes to Mark and Chelsea's place, and he's kind of a big shot attorney, and and he actually knew a lot of he was friends with Robert Downey Jr. and with with Bret Easton Ellis and some of these big shots, like sort of brat packers, and Molly was one of them. So she happened to be in town for something, and she was coming to their place for dinner, and they were going to have a small dinner party with Garth, me, another couple, Molly, and Mark and Chelsea. So Molly was a little late coming in, and I was like, oh, I'm not going to meet her. What a drag. And sure enough, she breezes in and she comes down and sits right next to me. And we spent the whole night on the sofa together. It was just the two of us. Then she sat at dinner. She sat next to me. And then after dinner, she sat back on the sofa next to me. I was like, and she was just so refreshing and down to earth and nice. At one point she was talking about, she's a mom, and her oldest daughter is named Adele. And I was like, well, wait a minute, that's my mom's name. And she was like, well, that's my mom's name. And we were like, oh my God. And we started talking about having a mom named Adele and what that meant back when we were growing up, because no one had that name Adele. Anyway, she was so fun, but she was talking about how she can't get on the phone. Like her kids will ignore her. I'm sure everyone here knows this. Your kids will ignore you all day long until you get on the phone. And then they want to talk to you. And she said, and I have a friend of mine, Warren, who calls up and he loves talking on the phone. And she said, and my kids, as soon as Warren gets on the phone, the kids start bugging me. And I looked at her and said, you're talking about Warren Beatty, aren't you? And she said, yeah. And I was like, wow, I love this. My friend Warren Beatty. But she was just, she was like so refreshing and down to earth and just, told such fun stories and stuff. I really loved her. I fell in love. So, and I was extra pumped because both Garth and Mark took pictures of us that night. So I occasionally will put one of the pictures of me with Molly up online.
Yeah, and Emily has a follow-up question. She says it's a picture of you with Molly on your website, and she says it looks like she's showing you something on her phone, or vice versa. She says, "What are you watching together?"
Speaking of Adele, her daughter had made a video, so she was showing me a video that her daughter made.
Very nice.
I know, isn't that cool? It was not cool. Some show businessy thing. She was showing me a video that her daughter made.
Well, you have a lot of brushes with celebrity. I mean, a lot. Oh. And I know we keep talking about Garth. For those of you who don't know who Garth Stein is, that name you may be saying, Garth Stein, that sounds familiar. He's the guy who wrote The Art of Racing in the Rain, which also got turned into a movie, which is, gosh, the movie was horrific. It made me cry. But that was a huge bestseller. And it still is, The Art of Racing in the Rain.
Yeah.
We had Garth Stein on last summer. And it was so much fun. And Kevin surprised us and joined in on the call. And Garth and Kevin together are a comedy show of their
Well, we're going to be doing a Zoom for the book stall in Winnetka on August 26th. So keep checking my fan page and you'll see some links to that. So and that should be kind of fun. But I have to tell you, are you ready for another celebrity story?
Yes, always.
Did I ever tell you about, I had a book signing at Barbara's Books in O'Hare Airport, which is part of Hudson News. And Barbara's Books, I'm in there. They were setting up my table. And I look over and somebody's taking a picture of some woman, beautiful dressed, blonde woman in a big fur coat. And I look and I'm thinking, she looks familiar. Wait a minute, that's Joan Rivers. So I was like, do I dare approach her? I was like, okay, I'm going to go ahead. And so I walked up to her and said, I'm really sorry to bother you, but I'm having a book signing here. And I can't wait to tell my editor that Joan Rivers came to my book signing, even though you didn't even. And she was like, well, where's your book? What type of books do you write? She was a doll. And I was never a huge Joan Rivers fan. I thought, I thought she was okay, but she could have easily brushed me off or just said, oh, I'm sorry, but I'm busy. Nope. She was all over me. She was like, what kind of books do you write? How long have you been writing? I'm buying a book, sign it for me. She had her assistant take pictures of us, which, okay. I was like, when I signed the book for her, I was so nervous. It looked like there was an earthquake at the, when it was all shaky. It was like, to Joan Rivers. And I was like, what do you say to Joan Rivers? It's like, you rule. And I'm like, okay. I said, you rule to Joan Rivers. It's like, how stupid. But she was so nice. And then as she was leaving to catch her plane, people started they were figuring out, oh God, Joan. So they started clustering around, and then she was getting out of there, and she said, Kevin, my assistant is going to send you it on Instagram. And I was like, I don't have an Instagram account. So somewhere out there in the universe are all these wonderful pictures of Joan Rivers holding up my book with me that I've never seen. And she passed away about a year later. So, but she was a doll. I really liked her. I was like, we didn't talk for that long. It wasn't like Molly and me where we sat down and we were next to each other for 4 or 5 hours. But, you know, for the 20 minutes I talked to Joan Rivers, she was really sweet.
Wow. So if any of you guys are good on Instagram, look and see
yeah,
if her account is still active.
Try and track it down. I was so like, oh my God, why didn't I get my own camera out and take some photos? So, but I was too busy trying to steady my hand as I signed her book.
Oh, wow. How cool. Kevin, I've got a question to ask you.
Sure.
And the group is going to start laughing when I start asking this question, because they know that I'm obsessed with this. I had watched an episode of Evil, you know, that show on CBS.
Uh-huh.
And in it, the protagonist wasn't sure if she was dreaming or if she was awake. She was being like haunted by a demon or something. And so she decided that she was going to make a sign and write a word on it and put it somewhere. And if it was a dream, she wouldn't be able to read it. And she said that you can't read in your dreams. You can't read words in your dreams. And that really bothered me, because I can read in my dreams.
I mean,
I'm not talking about, like, you know, where I'm just, and I'm not actually seeing them. I mean, I'm seeing the words, and I can read in my dreams. And so I actually did research on it because I was curious. It's kind of weird that you do something all your life and then somebody says, oh no, you can't do that. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
So it turns out that the people who have they found that the people who could read in their dreams were overwhelmingly writers.
Wow. I love that.
Can you read in your dreams?
I don't know if I put myself to the test that way. I read right before I start dreaming. I mean, I'm always reading late at night, and I've never heard that. So
in your dreams.
I'll have to get back to you on that one, because I don't know.
Please do, because I'm obsessed with the answer. I have put this out on Facebook 3 times, and I finally put it out to Barnes & Noble booksellers. And, you know, because we had our own private page, and I said, okay, guys, answer this question. And there were several booksellers who said that they could. However, there were some booksellers who said they could identify words and see them in their dreams, but they could not see numbers in their dreams.
Oh, interesting.
But I can see both.
Wow. You know, you might Google it too and see what they say on Google about. Okay.
I did. That's what I'm telling you. That's the articles that I found. It turns out that in our sleep, so those of you who know, it turns out that when you go to sleep, the language part of your brain shuts down. And that's why they say that you can't, they say a lot of times you can't communicate in your dreams. That
makes sense. Yeah, that makes total sense. Yeah.
But the reading is very rare.
Wow. You know, now that you mention it, I don't recall much reading in any of my dreams. It's a challenge to write dream sequences. I know that. I enjoy it. I had one of my proudest moments was writing a dream sequence in Unspeakable, and I kind of followed along the lines of Ira Levin in Rosemary's Baby, because she has a dream where like Jackie Kennedy shows up and she's on a boat, and then she's in the hull of the boat, and then she's doing this, and I was like, this is so like a real dream, because there's always somebody famous showing up in my dreams too. It's like, oh, you know, there's so-and-so this. I mean, sometimes it's somebody so unrelated to my life. I'm like, why is so-and-so showing up in my dream? But it's interesting. I love dream analysis. I really do. Of course, it's always more fascinating when it's your dream. Like sometimes you're like, oh no. I like when somebody's like, hey, I had a weirdest dream yesterday. Let me tell you about it. You're like, do you have to? Like, unless I showed up, do you really want to tell me about this dream? Or if it's dirty, I'll listen. But I don't know.
Emily says that she's been trying to pay attention since I brought it up last time, and she says she doesn't think she can read her dreams. Yeah. So those of you who you know, think about it, you know, and pay attention, because some people don't remember their dreams. you know, you can train yourself to remember your dreams. And I usually do, but it's bothered me ever since I watched that episode and I found that out. So
isn't it funny?
So
the little
I
things
told
that
them, I
kind
said,
of,
when I remember to ask the question, I'm going to ask my author friends or some of the authors to find out.
yes.
Yeah.
You know what? That's, you know, and it seems, I think we're getting close to the wrap up. And I think it's a terrific last question to ask every author. Wouldn't it be cool? I mean, is this becoming your tradition? Because you should make it. It's like, okay, let's find out about this author and their dreams. It's like, you know, I forgot who used to do that. Was it James Lipton on the
Yeah, I was just thinking James Lipton. He always had that final question.
Yeah, your final, was it the swear word or something like that? I forgot what it was.
Your favorite curse word.
Your favorite curse word. So I can't say mine. So.
Do we have any other questions for Kevin? I guess everybody's just
no one wants to know where the heck I am. Like, this is my, just to let you know, this is my ego room. It's a converted Murphy bed closet off my apartment. That's my living room right here. And it's the person who owned the unit before me put all these shelves in there, which I thought were ugly. And it was the first thing I was going to do was rip out all these shelves. And that was like 30 years ago. I've since come to love them and come to love this little writing nook. And this is where I do my writing. There's a window right in front of me that I can see the Space Needle from, and the mountains. And there's a much bigger, more beautiful view in the living room of the Space Needle and the Elliott Bay and the mountains and everything else, and Puget Sound. But this is my little room, and I've got all my book covers framed here. So it's a monument to my own ego. But I love this little nook. This is where I do all my writing.
That's wonderful. The last time you talked with us, you were in your kitchen.
That's right. Yeah.
That's right.
We were doing it Zoom, weren't we?
Yeah, we did it in Zoom, yeah. and we couldn't actually hear you very well last time.
That's right. So I think you influenced the choice of these things.
I know. Yeah. And like I said, you've come a long way, baby.
I tell you. Well, you helped me. You helped me across the road. You helped the old man across the street.
Old man, I swear. You know, Kevin, if those of you on Facebook, you know, definitely follow Kevin on Facebook, because, you know, he posts all sorts of cool stuff. But he'll post a lot of pictures of his family and him, you know, years ago. I swear that you probably have a painting of yourself somewhere in your attic. You know, because
this is what I'd like to hear.
You don't age.
I'm going to be 66 on August 20th, so I'm an old man.
Make it look good, whatever you do, and keep it up.
Thank you so much. It's the Vaseline on this lens. What can I tell you? Keep it smeary.
Hold on just a second. We got so let me read a couple questions. Shannon says she was thinking that it's such a cool room that Kevin is sitting in. She says very inspiring.
Thank you.
And Emily wants to know what's on the shelves behind you. She says those aren't cassette tapes, are they?
Let's see. There's this rows here, those rows there, those are CDs. And then up there on the top are some Blu-rays. You can maybe see North by Northwest right there, my favorite movie of all time. And then there are books all here and here and here. So there's like a hidden shelf here that's just crammed with books. And I have books in my living room too. You might be able to see, it's getting dark in there, but you might be able to see that there's, I have a lot of signed books over there. So that's kind of fun. So.
That's really nice. I have a ton of signed books too. I finally broke down and invested in these signed by author gold seals. And
smart.
And because I needed to remember which books were actually signed.
Yeah. No, you should. You should, because those are worth some money, you know? Yeah.
They are indeed. Let's see. Anybody else have any questions for Kevin? How we doing?
You guys have been so great to tune in. Thank you so much.
Such a great group. And unfortunately, like I said, there were some people that sent me an email this morning and they said, I'm not gonna be able to make it, you know, for various reasons. And one more comment I forgot to tell you. So Carol I'm recording. I told her I'm recording this. So she said to tell you that how much she loves your thrillers.
Oh, thank you, Carol. Okay, that was me. I pretended to be Carol and I wrote to you and told you that.
So one of these days, Kevin, when hopefully COVID is under control, I'm
Soon we hope, knocking wood.
Hoping and praying. We're going to be having a field trip to Seattle. And,
I love it.
And then we're going to have to, go on your murder tour. All the things that you have.
See some of the places. I love it. And then
all the places that are in your book will go on a tour. And then we'll have to tour your apartment and take pictures of where you write.
And maybe I can invite Garth and Erica over and Susan Wiggs and Terry Brooks and some of my writer friends. Yeah,
that would be so much fun because I really do love all of them. They were all on last year and they were the sweetest people. They were all so much fun. You guys have the coolest group. You've got the coolest writing group, bar none.
Thank you.
Really, Thank you. Huge authors all out in the Pacific Northwest.
I have to tell you, okay, so I'm sitting there watching Bridgerton, like everyone else, glued to Netflix, and the name Julia Quinn keeps coming up as the author, and I'm like, why does her name sound familiar? And I'm like, I think she's part of our Seattle 7 group, and sure enough, I look it up, and we both wrote the Hotel Angeline together. So I've met her several times and didn't even realize it. It was like, oh my God, I was that close to Bridgerton. I mean, like she is, and I vaguely recall meeting her at different library functions, sitting next to her because Q&O. And I was like, that's where I know that name. I met her. So it's funny who the people that pop up and you're like, oh my God, yes, I know her. I know him, so it's cool.
Well, she's rolling in money these days.
Yes, she's doing fine, isn't she?
She's doing really well. I'm real happy for her. And it's funny that there's so many authors that I know that are just getting their books optioned and are actually getting made. We have those of you who don't know, we have Samantha Downing joining us next Monday, not Tuesday, Monday, because she has something going on Tuesday. And Samantha Downing, she's got her latest book is in development. It's going to be, I think, on HBO Max.
Wow.
For Your Own Good. So, yeah, I'm real proud. Cool. I'm just happy for everybody just getting on. One of yours needs to be optioned.
I know. When is it going to happen? There was some interest in one of them recently, but I never heard back. So.
Well, don't lose faith. It took
I will try
CJ Box 20 years until his got made because he said that it got optioned and then it just fell to the wayside. And then finally got made. And now he's like prime time.
Wow. That's so cool. I love stories like that. That's inspiring.
Yeah. So keep it away. Okay. Before we drop off, because I know we're running a little bit late. Tell us about your new one that's coming out next year.
Well, I don't have one coming out next year. This is the shocker. I'm waiting another year after that. So it's going to be 2023. I am just right now outlining it, and I'm doing sort of a switcheroo. I am going to be writing, it's going to be a trade paperback, and it's a historical thriller. It's set during World War II in Seattle, in World War II, on the home front. My heroine is a Rosie the Riveter, and there's a serial killer out there killing Rosie the Riveters. It's like a little bit like Ted Bundy going after women around the time of women's liberation. So he feels that women should not be taking men's jobs and they belong in the kitchen. So that's where they're finding most of these poor women who he's killed and in the kitchen with an apron on. So it's very creepy. But I'm having a really cool time looking up all the stuff that happened on the home front during World War II. And it's interesting to see all the sacrifices people were making back then and compare it with what's happening in the time of COVID, where people don't want to, they're screaming about their rights and stuff like that. And you're like, hey, we're all in this together. We all have to, we all have to do this. And, I keep thinking we would have never won World War II if it was our group today, because everyone's thinking about themselves. So it's very inspiring to read about about that and to do that research. And that's why I'm taking a little longer with this one, because I really want to make sure the research is accurate. So that's long-winded question or long-winded answer to your question.
Well, it's a shame that we have to wait 2 years, and hopefully, and of course, and usually you come out with your books around the end of July anyway. So,
yeah.
So probably July 2023.
You got it. You got it. Probably around then.
But it's okay, because we'll get Kevin to come back on anyway.
Oh, for sure. Are you kidding me? Yeah, I'd love it. Are you kidding me? I love your group.
We never can get enough of you.
Well, guys, I might drop in on a few of your other things too.
Yeah, so. Well, join us for Meg. Meg is wonderful. Don't
forget to mute me, because I'll be putting my 2 cents in every 2 seconds. It's like, okay, we were going to give Kevin a break since he's an author, but no, let's mute him. Let's mute him. He's taking up too much time.
Well, that's okay. You can submit the questions, and Meg is just she's a delightful person. You know how much I love her, and she's just the cutest person ever.
She seems salt of the earth type. Yeah,
she is. She has her own YouTube channel, guys. It's called Meg's Tea Time, and she tells Hollywood stories. She has really great Hollywood stories of people she's worked with, and it's just, you'll love it, Kevin.
Oh, cool.
All right, so she's going to be on the 24th of August. So mark your calendars, the 24th at 7:30 at night, Eastern Standard Time. Cool. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It was just so much fun, Kevin. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you, you guys. It's so good to see you. Thanks for reading my book.
Guys, thank you so much. Be sure to tell your friends and family how much Kevin's books rock.
And how much Deborah's book club rocks.
Yay. Thank you, Kevin. All right, guys. Good night.